Welcome to Working Progress. This is the podcast where we dive into strategies for success and journey towards progress. We're closing out 2025 with our final episode of the year, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Vanessa Boettcher, Chief Operating Officer at TTI Success Insights. As we wrap up a year defined by change and resilience, we wanted to dig into a topic that has shaped so much of the small business landscape: how to engage, develop, and retain great people, even in a challenging economy. Today, we'll look back at what we've learned in 2025, what worked, what didn't, and how small businesses can build strong, future-ready teams through reskilling, hybrid work, internal mobility, and thoughtful employee engagement without needing huge budgets. We'll also talk about practical ways leaders can support well-being, maintain connection, and lead with intention when resources are tight. So let's get into it. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have the opportunity to close the year and share some of the learnings that I've had personally over the year with the team and with our partners. So I'm excited to be here today.
Well, let's just get into it then. So we talked about in a tight economy, many companies are rethinking how they invest in employee learning. So how did we at TTI approach skill development in 2025, and what guided those decisions? What outcomes have you seen from investing in learning during a downturn?
So the very first thing is that in economies of this nature, you got to know who your team is. You got to have the right people in the right seat because you got to drive to those results. And coming from an angle that everybody has good intentions, right? Mm-hmm. For the most part, all your team is going to have a good intention to get things done. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily aligned. Yep. By nature, we're all going to work in those things that we like the most or that we're passionate about. And the key is to find out if that is what is aligning with the organization too. And so it's extremely important, especially now, to define who is in your team. Know who you have in their team, what skills they have, and are you using them properly? Because a lot of the times you may have somebody in a seat and you're underusing the skills by not knowing. And so my recommendation, and we did some of that, is more than now than ever, understand who your team is, what their skills are. And if they're not in the right seat, where can they go where you can get the best out of them, where they feel engaged, when they feel aligned with the organizational purpose and so forth. But knowing your people is one of the best investments you can do in an economy like this.
Absolutely. So since we are an assessment company, how have the assessments helped us map skills inside the company and design targeted development plans for our employees? Mm-hmm. And maybe you can share an internal example of where this made a measurable difference.
Absolutely. So internally, we are using more and more of our assessments from different angles, all the way from approaching difficult conversations to understand what is the best way, how am I supposed to address this, because everybody is going to manage that conversation in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to also receive it in a different way than the person that is giving it to me. So using the assessments for all sorts of interaction is rule number one. You got to put it in the mindset of your team, because they're also responsible to use those tools for communication with the rest of the company. So whether it's interaction with other team members, with their own managers, and so forth, they're still responsible of making sure they understand who they're talking to, who their audience is, and how the message is going to be received so they can adjust the best. So that's one part. On the other hand, is really going through the exercise of understanding where my strengths are and where my limitations are. There's nothing wrong to have limitations, and we have to make sure that everybody understands that, because we want to create a safe space for people. Having limitations doesn't mean you're bad.
No.
Having limitations makes you human.
Yes.
And we expect you to have them. So how do we overcome those? How do we benefit from those things that you're fantastic at and put you where you're going to thrive, where you're going to be happy, where you're going to get satisfaction, where your drivers are going to be aligned with what we're trying to identify. So earlier this year, we have a team member that has been with us for a few years, but also life happens, right? So
Yeah.
life can come at you from different angles and change your priorities, your vision, and all your plans. And so she was one of those employees where life happened, and she went and took on whatever life was putting in front of her. However, as now she's overcome, or I don't want to say overcome, is more, she's closed that cycle in her life. Now she's ready for other opportunities.
Yeah.
And so you took the journey with her. Where are you now? What can you do? So knowing her skills help a lot, set her right back on track. And she's super happy. She's thriving. She's loving her job again. But it's a little bit of understanding that person's strengths, also looking at timing.
Yeah.
And making space for life events. You got to be able to do that, because you may have all the tools and all the plans, but if you don't make space for this type of events, you might also waste some of your best people. So that person specifically right now was a fantastic learning.
Yeah.
Because now she's in a good position and she's thriving and she's happy with what she's doing. And we know her skill set would fit and be the best right there.
Beautiful. Well, and even here at TTI, we actually encourage people to take their assessments every year. And so with life events, your behavioral styles can change, your driving forces can change as well. So it would be interesting to see how those have maybe shifted. And the assessments always kind of just give you an outline of maybe where to start too. That's one of the benefits of them as well.
Right. And for the same reasons, you ought to be looking at those job descriptions too, right? So right now, everything is going so fast, from technology to expectations to everything just moves so fast. And so jobs change, and they're changing sometimes faster than in a year. Yeah. And so, yes, you get to know where you are today, because whatever happened in the past year. So taking an assessment once a year is the best thing you can do for your own development. And then understanding where your job is today. Yeah. What is that thing that I know is no longer relevant, and what do I need to do now to continue to grow? And so I recommend both personal assessment once a year, but also look at the job descriptions and make sure that they're relevant and that they're up to date based on what the company wants today and what technology is dictating, especially in a company like ours.
Absolutely. So as a small and agile company, how do we make learning accessible without overwhelming people? So what practical advice would you give to other small businesses trying to upscale their teams with limited resources?
So what happens in an organization, in a small organization, is that you usually don't have a lot of paths for growth, if you may, when it comes to title. I want to be very clear about that. Yes. You can still grow in a small organization by constantly reinventing your job and your contribution. Yeah. So if you work on that ability of saying, okay, this is my set of skills and how do I consistently make myself relevant, that's how you grow in a company that is small. Now, as an organization, you got to be able and ready to provide those opportunities, right? Yes. Because if you are close to people participating in different things, then of course that's not going to happen. So you got to be set up in a way that you allow for people to learn a little bit here, a little bit there, cooperate in different areas when it's needed. And people should be able to find different ways to grow. Right? Small organizations, if you're going for a title, probably not where you should be. But if you're going for true development, small organizations actually offer a lot more of that development, because more often than not, you wear more than one hat. You get to learn to do a couple of things. And by the time you realize after a few years, you have learned a lot about the operation of the organization. So you make yourself relevant that way. But as a company, you have to allow for those opportunities to be present. Yes. And for people to eventually, switch positions when it's time.
Absolutely. Well, let's kind of flip it a little bit and talk about flexibility, because in today's business, that's a big thing. So employees' expectations for flexibility has really changed. So what has our approach been to hybrid work, and how have we balanced business needs with employee autonomy?
This is an ongoing topic that, I hear about it and discuss about it just about every week. The reality today is that having the option to be remote, it absolutely offers you a competitive advantage in the market. People looking for jobs and so forth, that's what they're looking. Younger generations like that.
Yes.
And so it's become an asset, if you may, to your offers as an employer to have that option. However, it's also truth that the dynamic that goes on when you're in person is very different.
Yes.
And so we're looking for that balance where we want to still be attractive and we want to offer those options, yet we also want that good interaction, that brainstorming of ideas that can only happen when you run into each other in the coffee machine.
Absolutely.
Or, whatever, doing something through the office. And so we earlier this year, we asked for all of our team to come back twice a week, precisely for that reason. And it really has shown a difference in the interaction of the team itself.
Yeah.
There's less confusion because now there's more people present. There's more people here. And trust me, I work happily from home, but I also have to admit that while doing that, it's a lot more tempting to be doing multiple things at the same time. And I'm not talking anything not work related necessarily, but you might be on a meeting and you might be working on something else because nobody can see you. And so you have to be very disciplined and committed to actually work from home consistently. Now, other thing too is that it's not the responsibility alone of the organization to keep you updated if you're remote. It's a two-way effort, because if it's the expectation is that the company is responsible to keep me updated and engaged and so forth, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You gotta put your work in, and you gotta be present, and you gotta be able to manage the absence, the physical absence, in a way that makes you relevant and present in everything going on at the office.
Yeah.
And so finding that balance is challenging. But it also has given us really good results. We see the dynamic being so much better. We see more people. The engagement is different, and I'm not implying that when you're remote you're not engaged, but the level of engagement is certainly different when you're in person. The ideas that can come up. Also, we have great interactions, solving things. Quick hello, hey, this and that happened, and you see people moving forwards faster. So there's something to be said, right? It's great. The pandemic opened that option. It's something that we got to adopt because it's part now of the reality and how we're going to be doing business from here on. But there's going to be a good balance. Too much of either too much remote is not good. And because now how everything is set up, too much in the office also might not be a fit for everybody.
Yeah.
So is finding that balance, and it's different for each organization.
Absolutely.
But it's the organization that has to set it up.
Yes.
Right? That's where the key is the owner organization that has to decide, how do I want this and how I want this to work out for this company.
Absolutely. So how have we ensured that connection, that teamwork and culture building in this hybrid environment? What are some of the actions that we have put into place that maybe some other small businesses could replicate?
So it's complex at the beginning because, of course, you face a little bit of pushback. Not everybody is happy to come back. Little by little, people start discovering the benefit of being at the office, right? And so you got to be able to continue with that flexibility. You have to put things in place that are attractive enough where I say, okay, if I come back to the office, I was doing this. So for example, I am a sample of that. I pick up my kids, right, every day. That is one of the benefits that I have, that I like to be able to go grab them and then go home and I continue to work.
Yes.
But that little break for me is important. I can keep that. So I'm one of those that is coming now almost every day because the one little piece of flexibility that I need is still there.
Yes.
So as a company, you have to provide those opportunities to let people still do some of these things. The engagement is bigger because you feel that you have that option and you can, it's a give and take, right? So as much as we want them to be back here, everybody, we also got to continue with that flexibility, right? The other thing that is important is making sure that you have a plan in place to create that back and forward communication.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have it, what will happen is that the expectation will be that you are the sole responsible person to provide that.
Yeah.
And so you got to have that plan clear. You got to check in with those employees in terms of expectations, how this is going to work out, and make them aware that you're now going to have a portion of the team coming and being in person. So things are going to happen
Yes.
where they might feel excluded, because that also happens, right?
Yes,
so you're having
absolutely.
gatherings. Now all of a sudden we're back to having holiday parties and gatherings and this and that, and just even casual bagel by the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so, of course, what is going to happen eventually, you feel left out because you're not able to participate in those things. So how do you address that? How does the person choosing to be remote manages that as well? Do they come for those things?
Yeah.
Do they make the decision to come and join the team every so often so they feel that they're a part of?
Absolutely. So we talk a lot about skills first internally as well. So what does a skills first culture look like in a small business? And how has it shaped the way that we hire, develop, or even promote talent here at TTI?
Well, the biggest learning for me in the past few years has been that you have to be able to adapt. And you have to be flexible, because again, in a company this size, flexibility and adaptability are going to be your best friends.
Yeah.
So how do you benefit from that, and how we benefit as a company, right? Is two different approaches. As a company, it might be that technology is overcoming some of the things that you used to do, and it could be anything, that can be replaced by a process now, or a system, or a software. And so it is in my best interest that if I see this starting to come, what else can I do, right? I need to adjust. I need to adapt to something else to continue to provide value. Allowing, again, those changes is very important, because if somebody's, being replaced by a new software, that doesn't mean that they don't have anything to offer. Right? That doesn't mean that they are not valuable to the company, but then it's really on how you prepare for that as an employee and as an employer. Yeah. What are we going to do now with this person that, is being replaced by this new tool that we brought, or this new software? Okay, you start your process. It's as important to define what software you're going to adopt as to where is this person going to go now. Or it might not be completely replaced, but a good portion of what they were doing. Yeah. So again, make that plan to make sure that person continues to contribute in a different angle.
Absolutely. So can you share a story where focusing on competencies rather than titles or tenure helped an employee grow into a new role or take on new leadership responsibilities?
Well, you're a good sample of that, right? You came in with a set of skills that fit in many different ways, right? So anytime that it comes to customer facing, helping us solve problems with whatever is going on, whether it's an issue with the system or a question with the tools and so forth, you seem to fit that pretty good. Right? You know the assessments well, and you know how to manage customers. You know how to work with customers. So those are two pretty big skills for us. It's like, okay, you can do this from many different angles. So you've been one of those people that we move, especially in the last year and a half, to a couple of different things based on what the needs were for the company and where we saw you could do well. Yeah. And so you're a sample of that.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It is one of those things that I think you have to kind of take a step back. And like you were saying in the beginning, really look at your team, who the person is. And that's where the assessments do come in and help some of those conversations. And then as you observe your team, you're able to make little suggestions or tweak specific things that really do.
And develop in areas that it needs development and so forth, of course. But it's looking at those skills like, okay, who are you? What you bring to the table? And how are we going to pivot this so you can continue to be of value and contribute and so forth? And that's been really good because it develops. I'm sure you've learned a ton of things as we move you around. It makes you feel part of everything that is going on because you know that you're contributing to these things as they evolve and they change. For us, as an organization is great because we can say, okay, well, Shana can do that. You know, she has the skills to do A, B, C. And so I think it's very, very rich. Now, mind you, not everybody has the ability to adapt to this type of changes. So one of the things in your case that makes you very valuable is that we can switch it like that and you'll just on board and say, okay, what are we going to do next, right?
Yes.
But there's also the type of personality that has a very hard time with those changes. And you have to know that every change is going to mean the end of the world.
Yeah.
And while we know it's not, for that person it is.
Yeah.
And so be mindful of those. Again, the assessment will tell you exactly who that is in your team, so you can prepare accordingly, so they don't feel that they're being replaced or they're not valuable anymore. But instead, this is, the cycle of this piece is done. Now we're going to move you into this piece for your own benefit. Yes. Make sure you have clarity on that, because that plays a big role when you are dealing with behavioral styles that have a hard time with changes.
Yeah. It's one of the things that you have done with me. You've always approached me with, we've seen you do this really well. We'd like to develop you a little bit more. And so, as you're saying, as a manager, somebody who has a behavioral style that doesn't like change, approaching it differently for somebody who's very outgoing like I am, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So it's again, the manager really does play such a key role in how they approach different things. And that's one thing that you have done with me. So I appreciate that.
We're learning.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so for small organizations who really have that limited headcount, then internal mobility can be challenging. So what creative ways have we found to give people growth opportunities, even when we can't always offer, a new job title?
Right. So the contribution that they can make, you got to allow that to happen. And it can be a little slippery, because sometimes when you want people to come up with ideas and brainstorm with you, some people can take offense if their idea doesn't win.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're clear about that, the brainstorming, I find it to be very rich. Yes. I very seldom make decisions without talking it at least with a few people. I have to, because I realize that there's always different pieces and there's always things that I might have not seen and so forth. So you got to let people contribute from their own angle and help them kind of navigate these changes with you, feel part of it. But if their idea doesn't win, it's okay too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're learning different things. They're contributing from different angles. And so I think that's, as a small organization, that's one of the best things you can do. Yeah. Because that's teaching them mobility. This is my job over here, but I'm helping over here and I'm helping over there. And as I said earlier, in small organizations, you wear multiple hats.
Yes.
It's just the nature of a small business. You don't have just one job. And so if you learn how to benefit from that, and if you're organized about how you contribute to different pieces and different departments within the organization, that is really the mobility that you can have. So it's not a title. Yeah. But it's, I know how to do that. Yes. And, I can help with that. Yes. And I know. So you are truly growing more than what you realize when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with burnout becoming more common, especially in a slower economy, how have we supported employee well-being? What are the small but impactful practices that we have built into our culture here?
I think the biggest one that we have is flexibility. That continues to be where we always put family first. So anytime you have a situation related with family, is no questions asked. We are supportive. We enable anything we can possibly do to help you navigate through that. The other piece is that flexibility I was talking about earlier, where a lot of us here are parents, right? And there's nothing wrong with having that little bit of time to pick up your kids or to show up to their recital or anything like that. Those little pieces go long ways. Yes, they help you stay connected with what matters to you. So if you don't have kids, I'm sure you have many other things that are important to you. Yeah, and allowing you to remain connected is important. The demands today are so heavy for everybody, no matter what industry, no matter what you do. The technology is driving us at a speed that is overwhelming. Yeah. And so most of us have a full day, no matter what. Providing those little spaces has proven to be super beneficial. It gives you a peace of mind. It gives you an engagement. You appreciate those little things that are given to you. So it's not always a huge thing. It's these little things that count, that you feel seen as a person, right? And you can count on if something happens. I know my employer is not going to be like, well, you weren't here. Why did you have to show up to that meeting remotely?
Yeah.
Well, so understanding that, collaborating, working in a good synchrony with what the employees' needs are is what has been a big factor for us.
Absolutely. So let's make this one a little more personal.
Okay.
And what is one leadership lesson you have learned this year that has shaped how you lead?
So the biggest thing that I learned this year is to ask questions.
Okay.
Never assume anything, whether that is the intention of a person, what they're doing with their job and their time and so forth. Never assume.
Yeah.
Always have the ability to ask questions. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And always ask and always hear both sides of a story.
Yeah.
If you're being presented with a problem, make sure that you visit with the other person to understand also their perspective and their reasons and so forth. Because I've noticed that this actually creates a lot of additional problems that are unnecessary. So as a leader, you owe it to yourself and to the people that work with you to ask questions. Get yourself informed, understand what's going on, look at it from different angles, and then you can make a decision. Because if you don't, you have a high risk of making mistakes.
Yes, I love it. So ask questions, be curious, basically.
Yep.
So last question. If you could give one piece of advice to other business COOs on how to keep people engaged, motivated, and connected when budgets are tight, what would it be?
Oh, well, remember you're working with people is number one. You can be going at a high speed and, revenue is important and this is important and that is important. It's easy to get lost.
Yeah.
However, if you remind yourself constantly, I'm working with people, you'll be amazed how much more you can advance by consistently, asking for help. Even as a COO, you're not going to see everything. You can't.
No.
And so asking for help, remaining connecting with different pieces of the team, being humble, it's important.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, again, you have a high risk of making the wrong decisions or taking the wrong approach, and especially not getting the results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So for me, what has worked is truly remaining connected with the team. Every time when I'm feeling a little overwhelmed or a little under the water, it amazes me how when I reach out to somebody and say, I need help with this, somebody jumps in immediately. And it warms your heart because sometimes we make our own problems in our heads by feeling, how am I going to do this and so forth. But then you realize that it's not that way.
Yeah.
You realize you work with people that care and are there for the same reasons that you are.
Love it. Well, that wraps up our final episode of Working Progress for 2025. A huge thank you to you, Vanessa, for sharing your insights and experiences. It's clear that even in tough economies, small businesses have powerful tools to build resilient and engaged teams. And to you, our listeners, thank you for an incredible year. This podcast simply wouldn't be possible without you. Thank you for your continued support, your curiosity, and willingness to grow alongside us. Every download, share, review, or even conversation you've had about the show has made this community what it is. And as we head into 2026, let's carry forward the lessons of this year. Invest in people, lead with purpose, and never underestimate the impact of thoughtful, intentional culture building. So whether you're rethinking hybrid work, mapping skills, or simply trying to keep your team connected, progress is always possible, always, no matter how big your budget is. From all of us at TTI, we wish you a joyful holiday season and a bright start to the new year. Again, thank you for listening. We'll be back next year with more conversations to help you grow, adapt, and thrive. We look forward to seeing you in 2026. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making progress. Take care, everyone.